The next law is the law of focus. The most powerful concept in marketing is owning a word, just a simple word, in the prospect's mind. Take an example. Emery Air Freight was the first and largest air cargo carrier in America. What did Emery Air Freight offer? Everything. Anything you wanted to ship. Small packages, large packages, overnight service, 2 or 3 day delayed service. Anything you wanted to ship, you could ship via Emery Air Freight. What did Federal Express do? Federal Express narrowed the focus to one service, small packages overnight. And today, Federal Express is a much bigger company than Emery. As a matter of fact, Mr. Emery got fired. Now, what is the advantage of narrowing the focus to overnight service only? It's because Federal Express owns the word overnight in the mind of the customer. When people want to ship a package overnight, they say, let's FedEx it. That means overnight service. Take another example, pizza. See, the pizza market isn't one market. It's at least 3 markets. It's the eat-in market, the restaurant tables and waitresses. It's the take-out market, you take the pizza home. And it's the home delivery market. Now, Pizza Hut is the leader. They have the advantage of being first. But the number 2 and 3 brands are the ones that just sell a slice of the market. For example, Domino's Pizza is the number 2 brand. They focus on home delivery. By focusing on home delivery only, they were able to put that concept in the mind. When you think home delivery, you think Domino's Pizza. Now, Little Caesars, on the other hand, focuses on the takeout pizza business. Now, takeout is the cheapest way to sell a pizza. You have no waiters or waitresses or tables. You have no delivery trucks. So their focus is 2 pizzas for the price of 1. Or as they say in their advertising, pizza, pizza. They spend $50 million saying, pizza, 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 pizza. Believe me, after 2 weeks or so, that idea is firmly embedded in the mind. If you want 2 pizzas for the price of 1, you got to go to Little Caesars. That same principle applies to whatever you sell. The most powerful concept in marketing is owning a word in the mind. Interestingly enough, if you can own one word in the mind, the prospect will give you many others. Not everybody can be a leader, but there's good news. It's the law of duality. In the long run, every market becomes a 2-horse race. So there's an opportunity for 2 brands in every category. Take the cola field. Coke was first, Coke is powerful, but there was an opportunity for Pepsi-Cola to become the 2nd brand. However, if you're the 3rd brand, like Royal Crown Cola is, you're in for serious problems. Because really, there's only room for 2 brands in the mind, and actually, there's only room for 2 brands in the supermarket. Now, take another example, orange juice. A number of years ago, Procter & Gamble, really a powerful marketing organization, decided to introduce an orange juice called Citrus Hill. But Citrus Hill was number 3 in a category. We had 2 big leaders. We had Minute Maid and we had Tropicana. There was no room for Citrus Hill. Procter & Gamble spent 10 years trying to get Citrus Hill into the supermarkets and into a successful brand. It never made it. It lost money 10 years in a row, and they finally killed the brand, and it cost them $200 million to shut it down. Wherever you look today, where the category is mature, you find 2 major brands. Athletic shoes, we got Nike and Reebok, and everybody else is very small. In airplanes, worldwide, we have 2 brands, Boeing and Airbus. And McDonnell Douglas, the 3rd largest maker of airplanes, is in trouble. Wherever you look today, you find the same phenomenon. 2 brands dominate the category. In batteries, it's Eveready and it's Duracell. In mouthwash, it's Scope and Listerine. In tires, it's Michelin and Goodyear. In toothpaste, it's Crest and it's Colgate. Every single category tends to have two brands. Take political parties. In the United States, we have the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Two parties dominate the category. As a matter of fact, if you look around the world today, where you find two major political parties, you find political stability. It's only when you have one party that you find, incipient dictatorships, or if you have multiple parties, you have greater instability of government. In government, in brands, wherever you look, two brands will long-term dominate the category. That's the law of duality. Now that we know that there's always room for two brands in a market, the question is, how do you become a strong number two? Since we talked about the law of duality, you might be interested in how you get to be number two if you weren't the leader. Well, that is the law of the opposite. If you're shooting for second place, your strategy is determined by the leader. You have to do the opposite of what the leader does. There's a philosophy here. In strength, there is weakness. Take the dinosaur. The dinosaur is the most powerful animal that ever walked the earth. But what is the weakness if you happen to weigh 20 tons? You know what the weakness is? You have to eat 2 tons of cereal for breakfast just to maintain your weight. Now, some scientists think that when an asteroid hit the Yucatan and kind of blocked out the sun for a couple 100,000 years, these poor guys never got enough to eat and they died out. So there is always weakness inherent in strength. For a bank in the state of New Jersey called United Jersey. Now, United Jersey competes with the big banks. Banks like Citibank and Chase Manhattan Bank. Where's a big bank strong? A big bank is strong because they got a lot of money, they got a lot of people, they're very big, they got a lot of resources. What is the inherent weakness if you're big? Well, big institutions are slow. So we said to United Jersey, you're the fast-moving bank. I'll never forget, the chief executive said, I'm sorry, Al. Our bank is no faster than Citibank. We're no faster than Chase. And we said, that's okay. If you're shooting for second place, your strategy is determined by the leader. Therefore, you got to change the bank. You got to change everything you do so that you can become the fast-moving bank. So that's what they did. They changed all their procedures of the bank. They speeded up the mortgages, the car loans. Everything they did was faster. And then they launched a program calling themselves the Fast-Moving Bank. And income rapidly doubled in 3 years. But you got a winner when you see this idea, this concept, the Fast-Moving Bank, on the cover of the United Jersey Annual Report. One of the big examples of this idea of what to do if you're shooting for number two is Pepsi-Cola. See, Coke is the leader, but Coke is a 110-year-old product, 110 years old. Now, what's the weakness if you're 110 years old? Well, your parents drank Coca-Cola. So what Pepsi-Cola said is, you don't want to drink the same stuff that your parents drank, do you? You're the Pepsi generation. And the kids and the younger people reacted to that tremendously. And where Coke used to outsell Pepsi 2-1 today, Coke outsells Pepsi in the United States about 10-9. Pepsi is a very, very close number two brand. So that's what you got to do. If you really want to be number two, what you have to do is the opposite of what the leader does. That's the law of the opposite. The next law is the law of line extension. There's an irresistible pressure to extend the equity of the brand. Everybody wants to take their name and put it on everything. Take Scott Tissue, for example. Scott was the #1 brand of toilet tissue. So what did they do with the Scott name? They put it on napkins, they put it on towels, They put it on nose tissue. They put it on everything. And today, Scott is no longer the #1 toilet tissue. Charmin is. Try this. Think of it as a shopping list. Let's say I have a shopping list and I go to the supermarket on Saturday. If it says Coca-Cola, I know what to buy. I buy those little brown bottles. If it says Kleenex, I buy nose tissue. If it says Charmin, I buy toilet tissue. But what do I buy if it says Scott? And what part of the body do I use it on when I get it home? Scott is well known, but Scott doesn't stand for anything. When you put your name on everything, your name loses its power. And yet, most companies today do that. They try to think of all the crazy things they can put their name on. Bic pantyhose? I mean, Bic is a lighter. Bic is a pen. So they put their name on pantyhose? The bottom fell out of this market in a big hurry. And then there's Pierre Cardin wine. Pierre Cardin wine. Pierre Cardin is a designer. I mean, I took this bottle of wine, I opened the bottle, I gave my wife a glass, she tastes it and she says, well, it tastes all right, but it smells a little sweet. Of course it's going to smell sweet. It says Pierre Cardin. Naturally, Pierre himself smells a little sweet. And would you believe Coors? Coors is a beer. Coors came out with a water called Coors Water. What do you figure? They wash the beer barrels and bottle the wash water? That doesn't make any sense. My favorite is Adidas cologne. Adidas is an athletic shoe. What do you suppose? They take those old athletic shoes and they squeeze the juice out of them to get Adidas cologne? And how about Chanel for men? Chanel is a perfume for women. Why would real men want to wear Chanel? Now, one of the reasons that companies get confused about line extension, it tends to work in the short term, but not in the long term. It's kind of like alcohol, kind of like drinking, you know? Is alcohol a stimulant or is alcohol a depressant? Well, in the short term, alcohol clearly is a stimulant. But you know, after you've had 3 or 4 and 5 or 6 hours have passed, alcohol is clearly a depressant. So too with line extension. In the short term, line extension can stimulate sales, but in the long term, line extension usually depresses sales. That's the law of line extension. You know what the most difficult job in marketing is? It's getting in the mind of the customer or prospect. But there is a law that can make that job easier. It's the law of candor. When you admit the negative, the reader will give you the positive. Take Volkswagen. Years ago, people wanted big cars. So Volkswagen admitted their car was small. They said, think small. That's a negative. But having said that, then they talked about all the benefits of having a small car. I mean, you use less gasoline, it's easier to park, it makes your house look bigger. So by admitting the negative, they were able to communicate the positive. And my favorite ad, the 1970 VW will stay ugly longer. I mean, yeah, it's ugly, but it's reliable. And maybe you remember that famous Rolls-Royce ad? At 60 miles an hour, the loudest sound in this new Rolls-Royce is the electric clock. They're talking about the clock being noisy. You know, after they ran that ad, the engineers said, let's fix the clock. No, don't fix the clock. I mean, having a noisy clock makes people think the car is quiet, and people think a quiet car is a quality car. Remember Avis? Avis lost money for 13 years in a row, and then they ran this campaign. Avis is only number 2 in rent-a-cars. That's the negative. So why go with us? We try harder. Oh, that makes sense. If you're number 2, you try harder. Some of the most famous campaigns in advertising history are based on negative ideas. Remember when Benson and Hedges launched the first 100-millimeter or long cigarette? They talked about the disadvantages of Benson and Hedges. They had 2 guys talking. One guy smoking a Benson and Hedges, and he burned the beard of the guy he's talking to. And another guy gets in an elevator smoking a cigarette, the door's closed, cut the cigarette in half. The disadvantages of a long cigarette, Benson and Hedges. And Joy perfume. The only thing the Joy ads have ever said is the costliest perfume in the world. They're bragging about the fact that it's so expensive. If you don't like the smell of Joy perfume, have your nose fixed. It can't be the perfume. The perfume costs $365 an ounce. Take another example. Motel 6. See, Motel 6 is the lowest cost of any national motel chain in America. Now, here's a very good point. If you're selling a low-priced product, a good thing to tell people is what they don't get with the low price. In other words, what they have to give up in order to get the benefit of having a low price. That's what Motel 6 does. Here's an ad that says, how to take a bath at Motel 6. The poor guy's in the shower. There are no bathtubs in Motel 6. That's what you have to give up to get the low price at Motel 6. If you want to get in the mind of anybody, the best way to start is by saying something negative about yourself, something negative about your product. That's the law of candor.